Maria Santos and Sheikh Rashid Al-Karim seemed destined for a fairy tale wedding. But behind the glittering palace walls, a dangerous secret involving Rashid's own brother would turn their honeymoon into a deadly nightmare. Maria Santos had always dreamed of a life far removed from the cramped apartment in Manila where she grew up. She was the eldest daughter of a tricycle driver and a market vendor, and since childhood, she carried the responsibility of supporting her younger siblings. Every night, after long shifts at the hotel where she worked as a receptionist, she would scroll through pictures of glamorous weddings on her phone and imagine herself walking down the aisle in a gown shimmering with jewels. It seemed impossible then, a fantasy meant for others, but never for her. Yet fate, or what seemed like fate, would place her at the center of a story so extravagant it could have been pulled from a magazine. When she met Sheikh Rashid Al-Karim, the son of a wealthy Emirati family, her world changed almost overnight. Rashid was older, confident, and surrounded by the kind of luxury Maria had only seen in movies. His courtship was swift and overwhelming. Expensive gifts appeared at her door. Invitations to fine restaurants swept her into a lifestyle she had never known. Within months, the proposal came, and Maria accepted without hesitation. Their wedding was unlike anything her small community in the Philippines could have imagined. Held in a palace-like hotel in Dubai, the event dazzled guests with golden decorations, cascading flowers, and diamond-studded favors. Maria wore a gown worth more than her family's entire lifetime of earnings. Cameras flashed, guests applauded, and her parents wept with pride as their daughter seemed to step into a world of fairy tales. To outsiders, Maria's story appeared perfect, a young woman lifted from poverty into a life of wealth, stability, and admiration. But behind the sparkle of the wedding lights, shadows were already gathering, unseen and unstoppable. Before her whirlwind romance with Rashid, Maria's life was defined by struggle. She lived in a crowded Manila neighborhood where the sounds of vendors shouting in the streets mixed with the rumble of tricycles and jeepneys. Her family's modest home was held together with patched wood and tin, and every payday was a delicate balance between food, school fees for her siblings, and her parents' medical needs. Maria carried herself with grace, but behind her bright smile was a constant weight, the quiet fear of never escaping poverty. Working as a hotel receptionist provided her with a glimpse into another world. Every day, she checked in wealthy travelers, businessmen, and tourists who carried themselves with ease and luxury. She learned to speak politely, to smile even when exhausted, and to hide the envy that stirred when she saw women her age wearing designer dresses and expensive jewelry. At night, she returned home to cook rice for her family and dream of something more. When Rashid entered her life, the difference between her world and his was impossible to ignore. He was a guest at the hotel, a man whose presence commanded attention. His car alone was worth more than Maria could ever imagine earning in her lifetime. Yet, for reasons she never fully understood, he noticed her. Flowers arrived at the hotel lobby. Jewelry appeared in small velvet boxes. He spoke of Dubai, of opportunities, of a future that shimmered with wealth and security. Maria's parents were cautious but dazzled. The idea of their daughter marrying into money seemed like salvation. For Maria, Rashid wasn't just a man. He was her escape, her ticket out of struggle. But in choosing him, she unknowingly stepped into a web of power and danger that no amount of wealth could ever protect her from. Among the glittering guests at the grand wedding stood a figure few noticed at first, Rashid's younger brother, Karim Al-Karim. While Rashid radiated power and authority, Karim carried himself differently. He was softer in demeanor, quieter in voice, yet his charm was undeniable. Where Rashid often spoke with command, Karim preferred to listen, drawing people in with a warmth his older brother rarely showed. To many, he was simply part of the background, overshadowed by Rashid's commanding presence. But to Maria, he became impossible to ignore. During the wedding celebrations, Karim remained in the shadows, watching with a calm intensity. He congratulated the couple with polite smiles, but his gaze lingered a second too long when it fell on Maria. The subtle glances between them escaped most eyes, lost in the chaos of music, laughter, and flashing cameras. But in those fleeting moments, a silent story began to unfold. Karim had always lived under Rashid's shadow. Rashid was the heir, the leader, the one expected to uphold the family's wealth and reputation. Karim, meanwhile, was seen as the carefree younger brother, allowed more freedom but never the spotlight. This freedom gave him time to explore his own desires, his own secrets. And Maria, with her delicate beauty and quiet strength, drew him in from the start. Though the wedding was supposed to bind Maria and Rashid in a union of love and loyalty, a dangerous undercurrent already ran beneath the surface. Karim's presence was more than a formality. It was the beginning of a silent rivalry. In that glittering hall filled with gold and celebration, a triangle of desire, power, and betrayal quietly took root, one that would ultimately lead to tragedy. Long before Maria walked down the aisle in her diamond-studded gown, another story had been unfolding in the shadows. Karim had noticed her months earlier, when Rashid first introduced her to the family. At a dinner filled with stern faces and polite conversations, Karim caught sight of the nervous young woman seated beside his brother. Unlike others who bowed under the weight of Rashid's authority, Maria seemed both delicate and resilient, her smile hiding a quiet unease. For Karim, that look became unforgettable. What began as casual encounters grew into something more. Karim would find excuses to speak with her, offering small kindnesses, asking about her family, making her laugh in ways Rashid never did. For Maria, Karim was everything Rashid wasn't. Where Rashid demanded, Karim encouraged. Where Rashid controlled, Karim listened. Against her better judgment, Maria found herself drawn to him, craving the sense of freedom he brought into her carefully watched world. Their stolen moments took place in secrecy. A whispered conversation in a hallway. A lingering touch as he passed her a glass of water. Eventually, the boundaries blurred. Late-night messages turned into hidden meetings. Karim promised her a different kind of love, one not built on duty or wealth, but on understanding and passion. Maria knew the risks. Rashid's temper was legendary, and his pride allowed no room for betrayal. Yet the more she tried to resist, the deeper she fell. To outsiders, she was the dutiful bride-to-be, preparing to marry a man of power. But in the hidden corners of her life, Maria lived a double existence, one filled with longing, secrecy, and a dangerous desire that, once discovered, would seal her fate. The honeymoon was designed to be the perfect ending to a grand wedding, a celebration of love far away from the eyes of family and society. Rashid spared no expense, whisking Maria away to the Maldives, where turquoise waters stretched endlessly under golden sunsets. Their villa stood on stilts above the ocean, its glass floors revealing schools of fish drifting beneath. Every morning, attendants laid out fresh fruit, champagne, and flowers, while private boats carried them to secluded beaches. From the outside, it looked like a paradise only the privileged could afford. Maria played her part as the glowing bride. She posed for photos in flowing dresses, smiled for strangers, and posted glimpses of her luxurious new life. Yet behind closed doors, her heart was never fully with Rashid. As he spoke about business deals and family honor, her thoughts drifted to Karim. The forbidden messages on her phone became her lifeline, a reminder of the passion she couldn't let go of. Every vibration of her phone sent a rush of adrenaline through her. At night, while Rashid slept, Maria hid under the sheets, rereading Karim's words, imagining the freedom he promised. The risk thrilled her, the idea that even in this paradise, far from Dubai, their secret connection still pulsed. But paradise has a fragile edge. Rashid's mood shifted quickly, and Maria knew he was a man who noticed small details. She tried to hide her distraction, tried to laugh at his jokes and hold his hand during long walks along the beach. Yet cracks were forming in the perfect picture. In the middle of sunlit skies and calm waters, danger was already circling, waiting for a single slip to reveal the truth. On the third night of their honeymoon, the illusion of paradise began to crack. Rashid, confident and authoritative, asked to use Maria's phone for a simple call. She handed it over reluctantly, telling herself it was harmless. But a single notification flashed across the screen, a name that instantly froze Rashid in place: Karim. Curiosity turned to suspicion as he scrolled through messages, each one revealing the secret Maria had worked so hard to hide. The messages painted a picture Rashid could scarcely believe. They were intimate, personal, and detailed, a betrayal not only of his trust, but of his family's honor. What shocked him most was the involvement of his own brother. The one person he thought he could trust, Karim, had become the other side of this hidden love. Rage and humiliation surged through Rashid. Every word on the screen felt like a knife twisting deeper into his pride. Maria watched, paralyzed, as Rashid pieced it together. Her attempts to explain, to plead, only deepened the intensity of his reaction. The villa that had seemed like a sanctuary turned into a trap. The beauty of turquoise waters and golden sunsets was meaningless now. Paradise had become a stage for a private nightmare. In those moments, Maria realized how fragile her carefully maintained secret had been. The affair she thought she could control had been exposed in a single careless moment. Rashid's face, usually composed and regal, now bore the marks of fury and betrayal. What began as a dream honeymoon had instantly transformed into a situation she could never have imagined, one that would set in motion events with deadly consequences. The villa that had once seemed like paradise turned into a chamber of terror. Rashid's composure shattered, replaced by a violent, uncontrollable fury. The betrayal he felt was not only personal but public in his mind, a humiliation carried out by his wife and his own brother. Each glance, each word from Maria, ignited his temper further. The air grew thick with tension, the tropical night outside contrasting sharply with the storm brewing inside. Rashid confronted Maria relentlessly. He demanded answers, but every explanation, every attempt at reasoning, only fueled his anger. The love and respect Maria had once known from him vanished in an instant, replaced by the cold calculation of a man consumed by pride and rage. He struck her again and again, the violence swift and merciless. Each blow tore through not just her body, but the fragile security she had clung to since leaving the Philippines. Maria tried to escape, to shield herself, but the villa's luxurious design offered no refuge. The staff, many loyal to Rashid and afraid of his wrath, remained distant and silent, leaving her alone with a man who had once professed love. The sound of the ocean outside, once soothing, now seemed a cruel reminder of freedom she could never reach. By dawn, the nightmare was over. Maria lay lifeless, her dreams extinguished in an instant. The opulent honeymoon suite, once a symbol of joy and wealth, now held the weight of tragedy and violence. What had begun as a fairy tale had ended in horror, a stark reminder that wealth and power can conceal darkness capable of destroying anyone in its path. The morning after the tragedy, the villa was filled with an uneasy silence. Outside, the ocean shimmered under the rising sun, oblivious to the horror inside. Rashid moved quickly, aware that any delay could attract attention. With wealth and influence on his side, he took steps to ensure the world would never see what had truly happened. Staff were quietly instructed to remain silent, their loyalty secured by fear and promises of reward. Cameras, security logs, and any potential witnesses were managed carefully, leaving no trace of the violence that had unfolded. The story told to authorities was carefully crafted. Maria's death was labeled a tragic accident, a fall in the villa, nothing more. Medical reports were adjusted, statements edited, and the narrative sealed with layers of official authority. To the outside world, the bride had died unexpectedly, her passing mourned but unexplained. In reality, the truth was hidden behind the power and wealth of a man who refused to face consequences. Back in the Philippines, Maria's family received the news with shock and grief, unaware of the full story. They were told only that their beloved daughter had died suddenly during what should have been the happiest time of her life. Funeral arrangements were made, tears were shed, and condolences poured in, all while the real circumstances remained buried beneath lies and influence. For Rashid, the cover-up was complete, but the weight of his actions lingered in private. Every decision, every step taken to hide the crime, was a reminder of the brutality and control he wielded. In the wake of Maria's death, the world saw a tragic accident, but behind closed doors, the shadow of truth cast a long, chilling darkness that no amount of wealth could erase. Karim was left to grapple with a guilt he could scarcely bear. Though he had loved Maria secretly, he had never imagined that their hidden affair would end in her death. The weight of her loss pressed heavily on him. compounded by the knowledge that his own brother's rage had been the force behind it. Each day, Karim replayed their stolen moments in his mind, wondering if there had been a choice that could have saved her, a way to undo what had happened. Inside the Al-Karim family, tension simmered beneath a carefully maintained facade. Rashid's fury had been contained outwardly, but whispers of the affair began circulating quietly among relatives and close associates. Karim's presence in the family home became a constant reminder of betrayal and shame. Though no one openly confronted him, subtle glances, hushed conversations, and the cold distance of once friendly relatives spoke volumes. The brother who had once seemed carefree now found himself trapped in a prison of silence, unable to speak without risking further damage, or even his own safety. Karim's grief was complicated by fear. He knew that speaking out could provoke Rashid, whose temper and influence remained formidable. The love he had once shared with Maria had become a source of torment, a secret that could no longer bring joy. Night after night, Karim wrestled with the memory of her smile, the sound of her laughter, and the knowledge that their choices had contributed to her death. Though the world saw a tragic accident and a grieving family, Karim's internal struggle was a silent tragedy of its own. Love, desire, and guilt intertwined into a burden he could never share, leaving him isolated within the very family that had once been his home. The secret affair had ended not just in death, but in a lifelong shadow of remorse. Years passed, but Maria's story refused to stay buried. Rumors began to surface among former staff, neighbors, and travelers who had glimpsed fragments of the truth during the Maldives honeymoon. Small inconsistencies in the official reports sparked curiosity, and journalists, always hungry for scandal, started piecing together the hidden narrative. The glamorous wedding, the luxurious honeymoon, and the tragic accident no longer fit together seamlessly. Cracks appeared in the carefully constructed story. Investigators and reporters discovered testimonies from staff who had witnessed Rashid's temper and the subtle tension between him, Maria, and Karim. Each account, while incomplete, painted a picture that contradicted the official version. Social media amplified the whispers, and soon, what had been a quiet tragedy became a public story, captivating audiences worldwide. People were shocked that a bride, seemingly rescued from poverty, had been killed not by fate, but by betrayal and violence in the hands of the powerful. Karim, long silenced by fear and guilt, watched from the shadows as the truth gained momentum. The exposure did not bring Maria back, but it validated the secrets he had carried for so long. Rashid, despite his wealth and influence, could no longer completely control the narrative. The story had escaped, spreading across borders, languages, and hearts. Maria's life, brief and full of struggle, became a haunting reminder of the dangers of love, secrecy, and unchecked power. Though her death remained officially unsolved, the world now knew the dark reality behind the fairy tale wedding. In the end, her story endured, not as a whispered secret, but as a chilling testament to how betrayal, desire, and wealth can intertwine into tragedy, and how truth, even when suppressed, has a way of finding its voice.